All right. Well, I think we're past our late start time that we normally aim for. So, good morning, all. We are continuing our study in Deuteronomy. We're almost at the end, almost. I'm not going to tell you we're going to finish today because I'm pretty sure we won't. There's hope for next Sunday, though. So we'll see if we can pull that off. So we are in Deuteronomy chapter 30 today. That's where we'll start. We will make it past 30. We'll commit to that. I won't commit anything past that, but we'll make it through 30 today for sure. All right, and my Zoom friends, I've already checked with you. You can hear, that's great. So I'll wave and look at you every once in a while, and I'll try to spread my gaze around here a little bit. So in chapter 30, we pick up with Moses continuing to explain to the Israelite nation about the character of God, really. And he tells them, starting off in chapter 30, about their prosperity that will have once they turn back to the Lord. So recall that up until this point, he's told them over and over again, here are the rules, here's what you're to do, here's what happens when you do those things, yay for you, here's what happens when you don't. So they've been presented with really kind of the gambit. Here's what can happen. And he's also told them it's very bad when you don't do what you're supposed to do. But he also tells them, but I know you're going to do it. I already know you're not going to follow my directions. So he's reminding them again, it's going to get bad. These things I told you will happen. They're bad. You don't want those to happen, but you're going to do it anyway. The bad things will come. But here's the good news. When you come back to the Lord, things will be good. You will prosper again when you turn back to God. And he specifically says he will have compassion on you and restore your fortunes and bring you back, even if you've been banished to faraway, distant places. So remember from just a few chapters ago, he talked about when they disobey and the destruction comes, they'll be sold off into slavery. Even their enemies won't even want to buy them as slaves or have them as slaves. That's how bad it's going to get. People don't even want you to be their slave, is how bad you will be, how bad you will look to everyone. But he will bring you back, even if you've been banished far away. And then here's a good punch. The restoration he provides for them, for you, will be even greater than what he provided to all your ancestors. So again, remember throughout this whole book, we've really talked about the abundance of God. I'm going to use that word a lot this week and next week for sure, because it's really kind of summing up. The abundance that God provides is just, again, as I did a couple weeks ago, I'm using my arms to tell you abundance, to try to represent a God that doesn't measure this way. This is completely insufficient to tell you how abundant everything is and will be. So when he tells them that their restoration will be even greater than that of their ancestors, they've been told over and over through their generational learning about how great things were when he took them out of Egypt, when he has brought them through all of these things. It's great. And he's telling them, when you come back to me, even after you have disappointed me and I've destroyed you as I've said I will, when I bring you back, it will be even greater and bigger and more abundant than anything any of your ancestors have ever experienced. That should be, again, big flashy lights to them. This is something really, really good, really, really big. So we want to make sure we're listening to that part. It's going to be great. You're going to make him very frustrated with you. He will destroy you because he says he will. And we know he will. But he will restore you. And it will be greater and bigger and better than anything anyone has ever experienced. That's pretty cool. Then he begins to tell them that there is an offer here. There's an offer of life or death. So we're in verse 11 now. I found this one really, I won't say interesting. I found it very nice, very refreshing to me just reading it, because I feel like we need to apply the same logic to how we conduct ourselves and how we envision our interaction with God. Verse 11, he tells them, this is not too difficult for you. It's not beyond your reach. So he's given them the tools. He's given them the ability to choose life, to choose to do what he's told them. It's not too hard. It's not something they can't do on their own. He continues on that it's very near you. Right? So you don't have to go look far. You don't have to go off to several nations away and go to college to learn. You have everything you need. It's very near you. It's already in your mouth and in your heart. The things you need to be successful, he has given you. They exist. I don't want to say they're easy, but you have what you need. You don't need or require anything else. He explains it even a little bit further. You don't need someone else to go and get it for you. The keys to survival, the keys to being on the positive side of this agreement, this covenant, you don't need someone else to go and get it for you. Be thinking here that to this point, the Israelite nation has worked everything through Moses. Moses has been the intermediary between God and the nation. And he's telling them now, you don't need that. I have given you everything you need. You possess it. It's not too hard. It's not too far. You don't need someone to go to the heavens and bring it back down to you. You don't need someone to travel across the seas to go and investigate and learn and bring it back. It's here. I think we should be reading that. It's in the message he's been giving them throughout this entire book. The law, the covenant. This is what they need. It has been given. So then in verse 15, again, he reminds them, you can choose life and prosperity. I've told you what that looks like. You can choose death and destruction. I've kind of told you how that looks too. So the blessings and the curses have been set before them. You know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly what you shouldn't do. Again, this Deuteronomy is very repetitive in this way. Over and over. Here's the good stuff. Here's the good stuff that comes when you do the good stuff that I'm telling you. Here's the bad things that are going to happen if and when you don't do them. And then the extra little piece, here's how good it gets when you realize that and you come back. Things will be good again. So it's not all lost. And what I'll offer up here now, as we've discussed just even a few weeks ago, is that we as current day humans, we tend to focus a lot on negative things. We see things, we react negatively to them. We talk about the things that are negative in our lives. This is what gets our attention, the negative things. There's a lot of negative in here about what happens when you don't follow the directions, when you don't obey the covenant, you don't do what you're supposed to do. There's a lot of negatives there. But God's not choosing to dwell on those. He dwells on them enough so that everybody knows it's real and you really shouldn't be choosing this way. So it's not going to be a surprise. But to me, it doesn't seem like he dwells on that. Sometimes those lists of negative things get a little bit long, but he doesn't dwell on that. He always comes back to the positive, which I think in today's world, we have a hard time with because we grab onto those negatives and we hold on until we see something change or something better. Or we fatigue out of it and kind of give up on the negative that we're experiencing or seeing. To me, that's not what he's doing here. And it's kind of refreshing. If this was a big, long Facebook post, it would not end with, this is so terrible and I need or demand justice from this. the post ends with, and you will come back and things will be great, greater than you've ever seen or experienced or heard about. It's that next step, the things that we don't see and post about. God gives us that. So to me, I think if we stop and just focus on the negatives, we're going to not like Deuteronomy very much. But when we stop and think about at the end of the negatives, there's the positive. We make a change, we come back, we follow, we're restored to a level that we've never seen or experienced before. That's hugely positive. Remembering that at this time, he's talking to the Israelite nation, who none of these have been through, physically, personally been through leaving Egypt or wandering the desert. These are generations removed from that, as was his plan, but they know it very well. It's been taught to them and told to them over and over. And the positive is what he concludes that portion with. So I think there's a message there for us. We got to stop looking at all the negative and stopping there. We have to look beyond the negative. There's going to be negative, we know that. But there's always a positive that follows. And he's laid that out for us very well. And that's actually how he closed out chapter 30. Well, again, how that section closed out where we decide there needs to be a 30 and then a 31 to break it up somehow. So now in chapter 31, he continues on, and okay, this is where I think, unless I just misclicked something. Hold on one second. All right, we're in 30. Yes, of course you can. We've got a comment coming. She's making her way to the microphone.
This just struck me in chapter 30, verses 16. For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his commands, decrees, and laws. Then you will live and increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. That love, the message is the same throughout the entire scripture. And we wonder sometimes if when things are going awry or whatever, coming, just trying to recenter us back on, the message has always been, love the Lord your God, walk in his ways. And so one of the things that made me think is that, we all want to, it's coming up on the new year and we're going to be like, okay, we're going to get in shape. We're going to do it this time. And the message has always been eat right, exercise, get rest, and you're going to be taking care of yourself. I mean, I don't know why we try to go through all these tangents. You just got to center back on the heart of the matter. That has never changed.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for that. Very, very true. I like that analogy because it is. The requirements of what to do to be healthy, well, they haven't really changed. All right. You start with those, you'll be light years ahead of what most of us are doing. That's very good. Okay. So we're in 31 now. And we're hearing again about Joshua will succeed Moses. So Moses will be reaching the end of his time. And Joshua has been selected as the one to continue on. And so he gets into a little bit of description here. Interestingly, to me, 31 starts off by telling us that Moses is 120 years old now. And he says he's no longer able to lead them. And in addition to that, God's already told him, you're not going to cross the Jordan. So you're not the one to be with the people as they cross and go and overtake and conquer these other nations and live in this land of abundance. So just keep that in mind. We're going to come back to this, maybe not today, but maybe next week. Moses is 120, and he's no longer able to lead the nation. Okay? Just remember that. We'll cycle back to that. So here's the next piece of good news. God's going to cross the Jordan ahead of the Israelite nation. He's going to go before them. Joshua is also going to go before them. So the one with the ultimate mighty power, God, goes before them. Okay, let's just deal with that real quick. God's going to go take care of it. Okay, so remember in many chapters past, don't worry, God's got this. He's the one doing the conquering. You may be the physical presence with a weapon or a tool in your hand, but God is the one that gives the victory. He's promised you that. He's told you that it will happen. So he's reminding them, God's going to go before you. This is just done. Don't even worry about it. But now Joshua, the quote new leader for them, will also be going ahead of the nation. There's not a lot of description about what that means, what he's to do. My guess is here it doesn't really matter. Number one, God's already there. Just it's taken care of. We don't need to worry. Joshua's going to be there too, doing whatever it is that God needs for him to do in that mission. So in verse 6, this is specifically, I believe, in this section, speaking about the nations they're going to go conquer. He's telling them some words that we're familiar with, certainly in this congregation. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid of those you're going to fight and that you're going to conquer. The Lord will never leave you or forsake you. So God goes before you. He's got this well in control. You should be feeling at ease and very peaceful, even though you're about to go into battle. The conquering's been done. It's going to happen. Just kind of, think of just you wave your hand and it happens. That's about what this should be feeling like to them. He's telling them, don't be afraid. Be strong. Be courageous. It's going to be good. I'll also invite you to recall back many, many weeks ago. Remember all those times where there were all these reasons why, if you were a male, you didn't need to go participate in the conquering wars. The house that you hadn't finished building, the new wife you had, your vineyard, your first harvest hadn't been done. Nah, you're going to stay back and take care of that. We don't need you to go fight. And remember, just trying to rationalize that. Okay, we're going to go conquer these other foreign nations, and we're kind of worried about that. And God's telling us, I got it, don't worry about it. And so much so, we don't even need our full strength to go take care of this because he's got it. So this continues on. So now he's telling this maybe smaller group of people that's getting ready to cross and go conquer. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Just be strong. Be courageous. I'm with you. And I will never leave you. And I will never forsake you. So to me, he's adding in just a little bit more of those comfort words. He's telling them again, I'm going to be there. Don't worry, we got it. I got it. And now, and by the way, I'm not going to leave you there. So you shouldn't be worried that you're going to start this incursion into this warfare and then I'm going to take off because I got other things to do. He's there and he will never leave them. And in verse 7, maybe unsurprisingly, there's words directed to Joshua. And what do you think he tells him? Be strong and courageous. God will never leave you and never forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. So I don't know about you, if I'm just one of the fighter level people that's going and my God is telling me, don't worry, I've got it. Just come on and do the part that you're supposed to do. It's all going to work out great. Now try to imagine being the newly designated leader of those folks, and you're getting told the same thing. Okay, the message isn't different. God's still got it. You're in this leadership role that he has placed you in, not because you need to go do something large and great. You just have a role to play. Go do what he tells you to do. And in all things, be strong and courageous. And don't worry about it. Do what he tells you to do. It's going to be great. Just wait. Just watch. All right. So now, little shift in this particular chapter, again, how we choose to break things up. There's now a public reading of the law. So Moses writes down all of the law. So basically everything we've talked about for months in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses is going to write all that down, though we've heard it over and over and over. He's going to write it down, and he's going to give it to the priests who carry the ark. And I'll admit the first time I read that, he's going to give it to the priests to put it in the ark. And that's not what it says. There are only certain things that go in the ark. Something Moses writes doesn't qualify to go in the ark. He's giving it to the priests that carry the ark so that it goes with it, not in it. At least it doesn't say it went in it. Okay, so Moses writes all the law down, or he's going to. He's going to give it to the priests. And then the priests are to read this law out loud every 7 years. That happens to coincide with every seventh year. That's the year where the canceling of debt occurs during the festival of the tabernacles. We've talked about that a few weeks ago. And the goal of having this read every 7 years, kind of the obvious we'll put in this is, well, you'll just hear it again so it stays fresh. Maybe it kind of course corrects anything we may have gotten wrong in the last 6.5 years that we've been talking about it. This brings us back down to know, what did it really say, not what I thought I remembered it saying last time I heard it. But the main objective is so that the people learn to fear the Lord. And again, recall from many weeks ago, the way we associate the term fear is very different than what is written and translated in this section. Fear is revere. This was the meaning. To fear the Lord was to revere the Lord, to honor him, to listen to him, to follow and obey him. So again, we, today human, needs to set aside the connotations we put on the word fear and think more in terms of a more royal reverence. We revere the Lord and what he set out for us to do. The laws he's given us, the things he expects of us, we need to revere those as being great and awesome and mighty, just as they are. Remembering that that's kind of the key to getting back once we know we're going to mess up. We just simply come back to him, come back to the law, and things will be not just good, not just great, not just better, the absolute best we've ever experienced. So not just restored to where you were, restored to more. And I'll also say, reading the law again every 7 years, this follows just the whole context of what Deuteronomy has been about. They learn generationally. You listen to your elders, church elders, family elders, those older than you. The job is to teach and train and pass that down through every generation. This is how they learned. Remember, they didn't pick up their handy-dandy electronic device and Google it. They didn't pull out the old encyclopedia set. They didn't pull out 18,000 wagons, Holland stone tablets. They learned it by hearing it from those in their family, mostly, over and over and over. So every 7 years, okay, not a foreign concept. Every 7 years now, the priests are going to tell you the law again, too. Again, I think it's probably helpful to course correct anything maybe we forgot, maybe we got a little wrong, maybe we like to remember it a certain way that maybe isn't quite so accurate. You get refreshed with the real deal every 7 years. No fake news built into that one. It's written down. Those folks are going to read it, and you're going to hear it. So I think it just continues to reinforce that teaching from the family members to pass it down through the generations. It's also going to happen every 7 years. You're going to get it from more than just your family. I don't know. That sounds like a good thing to me. I know I get to go back to source and hear it again every 7 years to make sure I'm getting it right. These folks are certainly understanding if they get it wrong, there's a lot of negatives going to come from that. So I would think that their objective is to get it as right as they can get it. And if that means I get to refresh from the initial source again every 7 years, this is a good thing. We have a comment.
And also, he had already told them, I guess, in 30, one of the chapters we covered today, that it's good news that you have this. You don't have to go across the sea and send a voyager. So maybe it just also helps them to celebrate and appreciate the fact that they have this law at all.
I think so. Yes. And that it's that accessible to them, right? Absolutely. Okay, so we're still in 31, as we have found oftentimes through the whole study of Deuteronomy. We're going to take a little detour that's maybe not so positive. He's going to remind them again that Israel will rebel against him, even though he's just told them how bad things are going to be. They're still going to do it. And he tells them again, you shouldn't do this, but I know you will. And so he reminds them that Moses' time is near. Okay, so quit thinking Moses is going to be the one to help you. Again, if you'll recall, oftentimes, many times through Deuteronomy, Moses has interceded for the Israelite nation with God. God, please spare them. Let me talk to them. Let me try, let me go, let me say, let me do. He's reminding them again here. Moses is going away. You will not have that avenue much longer. So Moses used to be allowed to do these things. Moses is about to go. So you have to stop relying on him to be your intermediary. You have to be grown-ups now. You've got to follow the rules. You've got to obey the covenant. If you want the good things that come from following the covenant, then you've got to do them. So Joshua is going to be commissioned to be their new leader. There's more about Joshua and his role and how, I don't want to say how successful he'll be, but generally speaking, how successful will he be in that role? He's going to tell us more about that in just a little bit later. We'll cover that. So Moses is going away. Joshua is the new leader. And so God appears. This time he's a pillar of cloud, right? So we've known that before. He's either a cloud or a flame. We talked kind of at length about this is kind of the whole reason there shouldn't be any idolatry going on. He's never given them any physical thing that he looks like. They're going to have a hard time creating a cloud or a column of fire and idolizing that. That's a little harder to do than chiseling something out of a stone or forming it out of some metal. So God appears as a pillar of cloud at the tent of meeting, at his place. Again, not a foreign concept to us. He has told them over and over, when you come and do these things and these festivals and these sacrifices and these offerings, they go and they occur at the place I tell you, the place I am. They take it to the tent, the tabernacle, whichever the place is for whichever piece he's speaking. At this point, he's at the tent of meeting, and he's meeting with Joshua and Moses there. Okay? They're having a little get together. They're going to have a little conversation. And in verse 16, God tells them, so they for sure know it's coming too. God tells them of the Israelites' future breaking of the covenant. Not just they might. He's telling them this will happen. The nation will break the covenant with me. They will not follow my directions. They will not obey the laws. And that means things are going to get bad. Now he says, here's kind of how it's going to look. They're going to be serving the foreign gods of the nations that they're going to conquer. So in previous chapters, he has told us, don't follow these other gods. Don't bow down to their idols and do the things that these other nations you're going to conquer are doing. That's why they're on the list to get conquered. That's why I'm giving you this area. These people have disobeyed. These people are not eligible to receive God's graces. I'm bringing you, the Israelite nation, in. You will conquer them and take over their lands and everything they have. So why in the world would you go and then start worshiping and doing the things that they did that put them on that list to be ones to be conquered instead of going and conquering? But this is exactly how it's going to go down. The Israelite nation will go, and in the nations they're conquering and supposed to conquer, they will start now doing the things that those people did. They will be following other gods, doing things in their ways. And God's telling them, this is how it happens. The Israelite nation will break my covenant, and this is how. So now your two leaders of the whole nation have full awareness of exactly how this is going to look. So if there's any chance they've got of making it not happen, they know exactly what to watch for. They know this is how it's going to go. Unfortunately, we all know how this story goes, right? God knows. So we're sitting here rationalizing, well, maybe they could go and intercede, and maybe they could go interject and steer them away from and keep this from happening. And maybe they do. But God knows it's going to happen. Maybe it happens 2 days later than when it would have if they hadn't done something. That's possible. But the bottom line is the people will disobey. And then, therefore, he tells them, reminds them, they will be destroyed and forsaken. Now, remember, he just got done telling them, I will not leave you and I will not forsake you. Yet, they're going to disobey and disconnect from the covenant, break the agreement. They will become forsaken. But it's not permanent, right? He's already kind of tipped the hand there. Okay. And he's told them much earlier, if you break the covenant, you're done. There is no coming back. But he backs off of that just a little bit later on. Okay. If you really come back, it's going to be great. Okay. So they're going to break the covenant. Things are going to get bad. They will be destroyed. They will be forsaken, and they will know it. So it's not like they're just going to be struggling a little bit and wondering, is this what God meant? Well, they're going to know the destruction he will bring. They will know with certainty that this is the bad side. This is what happens because we did these other things. Okay. So we get into verse 19 now. Maybe not another detour, but a little bit back off. Okay, we're done with the negative piece for a bit. So verse 19, God gives Moses a song. I'm going to give you this song. And you're going to write it down. And you're going to teach it to the Israelite nation. So just, again, kind of think about how we do things today. Not everybody learns the same way, right? Some people read and get. Some people put their hands on and get it. Some people need a combination of both. Well, this is no different. Some people can read and do things, and some people, well, they capture it in a song. The music side of things engages different parts of the brain. We think we figured that out now. I say we think because we don't know. So he's just given them yet another way for them to know and learn the law. And I don't know about you, but memorizing an entire book of law, just reading words, or is this going to be easier for me? I've got a tune, I've got a song that I can apply it to. It's just another way of learning. It doesn't mean it's a different message. It's just packaged a little differently. Maybe this is an easier way for some of the people to hear it, learn it, remember it. So there's a song. And the song's whole purpose is to just be a recap of the law. It recaps the stories that they've been told and the foretelling of what's going to transpire, what's going to come, what's going to happen. It's just another way to keep teaching and keep passing it down. And maybe if you've got it in a song, you're less likely to get it wrong. Sometimes it's a little harder to change the words in a song than it is to change the words on something you think you memorized. Sometimes. Don't know. Just a thought. So in verse 23, God's talking specifically to Joshua at this moment. He tells him again, I, God, will be with you. Be strong and courageous. He's telling him again. Guess what? Repetition. Deuteronomy's full of it. There's probably about 12 verses we could make out of Deuteronomy because of all the repetition that 34 chapters makes. It's over and over and over. Maybe a little different perspective each time thrown in. Message the same. Okay, so he's telling Joshua, God's going to be with you. Be strong and courageous. You don't need to worry. So then Moses gives the Levites the book of law, and he tells the priests to keep it next to the ark. Okay? Not a big surprise. We were just told this was going to happen. So Moses gives the book of law to the priests. They keep it next to the ark. And they're also told, okay, the Israelites have already been rebellious when Moses was here. And Moses was a pretty good leader, right? That's pretty well known. He's done some very good work with them. And God says, even with that, even with Moses as the leader here, the Israelite nation has been rebellious. They haven't been able to keep the covenant, to follow the laws. And he says they'll be even more so once Moses is gone. So again, we don't know exactly what Joshua's being set up to be as the new leader, but the indication here is that the Israelite nation had problems following the law even with Moses leading them. And when Moses is gone and Joshua's in charge or in place now, they're going to do it even more. To me, that's not to diminish Joshua's role or his abilities. This is just going to be how it is. Snowballs get bigger when they roll downhill. Comment from the crowd here. It's very true. And it's also very much, it's not up to this human leader to fix all of these things. The Israelite nation has some ownership, has to have some accountability. Joshua's not going to fix it all for them because they're not going to follow the laws. So God has told Moses and Joshua this in their little meeting. And he tells them now, go and assemble all of the elders and all of the officials from all of the tribes for them to hear Moses. That's what they're to do now. Get everybody together, especially the elders and the officials, the other leadership. Get them all together because Moses is going to say something. That should be important. We should probably take a moment to think about that and understand it. He's about to bring everybody together again, most specifically the leadership that the humans have put in charge of themselves. Bring those folks together. Ain't everybody. Because Moses is going to say something. That starts to pick us up into chapter 32. I don't have time to get through all of 32, but I think I would like to start just a tiny bit. So we'll get in just a little bit. So Moses coming and talking in chapter 32 isn't really so much a talk. Moses is giving them the song, right? And we have to assume at this point, God just gave Moses the song. We have to assume that they don't know the song. They've never heard the song. Now, what's in the song is pretty much everything we've already heard in Deuteronomy. It's repetition. It's just packaged a little differently. So it's not new information, new concepts. It's just a new way to hear it. But it's a song that I think we have to understand they've not heard before. So he tells them, listen, and I will speak. /sing. Okay. Bottom line here, be quiet and listen. I got something to tell you. And he says, let my teaching fall like rain on the grass and on the plants. Again, remembering the catastrophe most nearest to these people, though they weren't there themselves, was wandering in the desert for many, many years. So again, hearing about grass and plants and rain should be a refreshing, peaceful kind of thought. It leads us back into that abundance word again. They know what it looks like when you don't have rain and plants and you have nothing but a desert and sand to walk around in for 40 some odd years. They know what that looks like, sounds like. So when they get to hear that there's rain coming, and this is what the word of God, as Moses is about to give them, that's what it's going to be like. I think they're probably starting to understand this is good. This isn't the same old dreariness that we've experienced or we've been told our ancestors went through. There's rain. I mean, think about, we're here in Central Texas. Think about when we go through our periods of having no rain for 30, 40, 60, 90 days, and it rains. And everybody's just ecstatic. It rained. Grass has a color other than brown. Because, the majority of the year, the grass is brown here. And it rains and there's some green thing to it. Wow. I only knew those from the crayon box. I've never seen green before like that. So I think these folks probably feeling the same kind of way. There's rain. This is what it's like. It's raining and there's new growth. There's things that are interesting to see, interesting to think about. So the words that Moses is about to give them will fall on them like rain. And that should produce some new growth, some greenery, some grass that can root in them. I'll throw rooted in there. And he tells them about the greatness of our God. We got songs about that. The greatness of our God. Is he talking about all the negative? No. He's talking about how great he is. Does that mean he's a pushover and just gives us what we want when we want it and how we want it? No, not at all. That's not what greatness is. Greatness is any number of things that God fulfills and exceeds anything that we can understand. But that's what he is. He has greatness immeasurable, unfathomable to us. He is the rock. His works are perfect and his ways are just. These are not my words. This is what Moses is telling them. I'm going to tell you some things. This is how great it is. It's about God. He's as great. Again, can't stretch my arms enough. There's a greatness here I'm about to tell you. He's solid as a rock. He is the rock, capital R, rock. Get ready. It's coming. His works are perfect. Get ready. Everything perfect. And his ways are just. So any of that negativity, there's justice with that. His ways are just, even if we don't like the outcome. It's what we deserve. He's a faithful God. He's upright and just. We're being told again. He's a just God. So maybe get ready to understand if/when you do mess up. Yeah, God's going to expect some justice for that. But he's already told you what it looks like. And he's already told you that, okay, when you do, you're still not left behind. He's still here. So just come on back and things will be great. And then he reminds them pretty clearly, the people are corrupt. They're warped. They're crooked. They're foolish. And they're unwise. Again, not my words. Words of the translators, so we're a little bit at their discretion. But apparently there's enough words in here that they needed to translate them all those different ways. Okay, the people. Not really all that. Okay, they fall short, just like every one of us. Maybe not in every word and maybe not in all the same ways, but we're all in this together. Much like we saw throughout Deuteronomy, it's about taking care of each other too, helping each other along. I'm almost out of time. Okay, so I'm going to hit verse 7, and we're probably going to wrap after that. So he's telling them in verse 7, remember the days of old. Consider the generations past. And you need to ask to be told. You need to ask to have it explained to you from your father and from the elders about everything you've just heard and everything you're about to hear and everything you've ever thought. He's telling them again, generational learning. This is how you do it. You're not all going to go sit and read. You're going to sit and listen. And maybe you're going to have a song. We're going to teach you a song. Not me. Them. They're going to get taught a song. I can't teach you the song. I don't have the tune. I wouldn't be able to do it anyway. So here's how I'm going to close us today. He's reminding them, remember, you have everything you need here and near and close. You just need to sit and talk and listen. Now, I've given you everything you need. It's right here. It's in these people. You help each other. You work together. You learn the stories. Every 7 years, you're going to get realigned again just to make sure we got it all right. We're back in line with the law because here's the law. Just listen. Just like, and if they're not telling you, we'll go and ask them. They didn't say sit and wait your turn. Ask to be told. Go seek it. Right? If you're not sure, if you don't know, you haven't learned, you're not certain what you should do in certain situation, go ask. Right? We all know that. Much better to ask than to just assume and get something wrong. These folks had just got done being told about how they'd be destroyed if they got something wrong. Just go ask. So we're going to close there for today. So just remember that. If you don't know, go ask. Easiest place to go ask. You got a Bible, you can search now. Much easier for us. So that's how he closes this section. When we pick up next week, we're going to start getting a little bit more intro into the song piece, and we'll kind of hear how that goes just a bit. So I thank you for your time and your comments today. We'll see you next week.